Welcome to Retirement Rescue Radio, a show specifically designed to help retirees and pre-retirees maximize their financial efficiency so you can live the retirement lifestyle you've always imagined. Your host is Nate Miller, investment advisor representative and author of the CPR Retirement Rescue Roadmap. Nate discusses thoughts and ideas from some of today's most knowledgeable professionals in the field of finance. He offers strategies along the way to help you make better financial decisions so you can maximize your retirement. This is Retirement Rescue Radio.
Well, hey, everybody. Nate Miller here with Retirement Rescue Radio. And today we're going to go over a question that I've actually gotten quite a bit in the past couple weeks. And it involves the confusing 5-year rule surrounding Roth IRAs. And so for those of you that may not be familiar with this rule, when you contribute to a Roth IRA, that starts a 5-year clock. And what that means is the 5-year rule in and of itself means that you have to wait at least 5 years to be able to take out any growth inside of a Roth IRA without occurring tax or penalty, depending on your age. And so basically the penalty would be if you are under 59 and a half and you do it, not only would you have to pay tax on it, but you would also be penalized on it. If you are over 59 and a half and you take out your earnings from a Roth before that 5-year rule is up, they will still be taxed. And so that's created confusion for a lot of people. They're like, oh, I need to leave all my money inside of a Roth for a whole 5 years before I can take any of it out. And that's not the case. So this is actually, this 5-year rule actually affects 3 different types of Roth. And we're going to go over those here real quick. It covers or it affects all those Roth IRAs that you have contributed to. So there's a 5-year window, a 5-year clock that starts once you start contributing. And matter of fact, the 5-year clock starts on January 1st of the year that you made the contribution, and so that is how that works. Now, here's what that means, and here's what that doesn't mean. Again, that does not mean that every new Roth IRA that you open has a new 5-year clock with the contributions. If you're contributing to them, that 5-year clock started right away. It started with the first Roth that you opened on contributions. Caveat on contributions. So it affects contributions, conversions, and inherited IRAs. Those are the 3 different types of IRAs that this covers. So I didn't mention that a little bit ago. So those are the 3 that it covers. And so on contributions, as soon as you start, so think about right now, I'm recording this on, happens to be April Fool's Day of 2022, but don't worry, everything I'm saying is true. I'm not trying to make a joke with today's topic. So yeah, completely true. So the first one, the contributions, you can contribute, all right, and it starts that 5-year clock. Well, then let's say you open another one and you start contributing again. Well, that 5-year clock was already started. So right now it's April 1st. We have until this year, April 18th, to make contributions for 2021. And so what that means is January 1st of the year that you contribute is considered when that 5-year clock starts. So if we contribute now, let's say we haven't contributed one for 2021, we have up until April 18th to contribute for 2021's Roth IRAs. So if we contribute now in April of 2022, it's as if we started our clock in January of 2021. And so then our 5-year clock for those earnings is done by 2026, not 2027. Okay. And so that's important now. And like I said, everybody is concerned about that 5-year clock, but that's only on the earnings, no matter whether we're talking about contribution IRAs, conversion IRAs, or inherited IRAs, whatever I want to call it basis, but it's not necessarily the basis, whatever your contributions or your conversion amounts were, or your inherited amount, whatever that amount was, that amount you can always still take out tax-free or penalty-free if you're over 59 and a half. And so that you don't have to worry about. It's all the growth. It's the growth. It's always the growth that is the last thing to come out, because the IRS has an order of withdrawals that they consider when you start taking money out of your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, excuse me. They will always consider contributions to be the first thing you take out. And remember, contributions, you've already paid tax on them. because when you contribute to a Roth, you don't get a tax deduction. So it's made with after-tax dollars. Those dollars that go into a Roth have already been taxed. So you can always take those dollars back out without paying any tax. Okay. So that's the key. So that's the first step. They look at contributions first. So if you've got Roth IRAs all over the place, they're going to consider contributions coming out first. The second order is going to be any conversion amounts are going to be the next thing, the next bucket of money that the IRS looks at as coming out. And the final bucket is going to be the earnings, the actual growth inside of those Roth IRAs. So let's give you a little example here. Let's say that you have contributed to a Roth IRA over, several years, and you've got $50,000 of contributions inside that Roth IRA or a couple Roth IRAs that you opened up and contributed to over the years. You contributed $50,000. Then you retire and realize, you know what? I think I should probably convert some of my traditional IRAs over to Roth IRAs, and therefore they're tax-free for the rest of my life, right? And so let's say you've got a $300,000 that you end up over a few years converting to a Roth IRA. So now we have $50,000 of contributions, $300,000 of conversions, and let's say during that whole time, the amount of growth that we have is another $50,000. So we basically have $400,000 of Roth IRA. Our Roth IRA balance is $400,000, but $350,000 of that represent either contributions at $50,000 or conversions at $300,000. So then let's say you're like, you know what? I kind of would like to take some of this out right now. So you decide that you want $25,000 per year coming out of these Roth IRAs. Well, at $25,000 a year, it's going to take you 14 years before you're going to dip into any of the growth at all. So you're going to be well past that 5-year window, well past it. Now, here's another confusing portion. It's like, I'm not done, right? It's like they couldn't just make it simple. Like you think that Roth IRAs, it's like, oh, I'm not taxed on the money I put in and anything I take out can be tax-free. Awesome. Yeah, the IRS doesn't make it that simple. So that's 5-year rules is part of it. So every time you make a conversion, so that $300,000 that I was talking about, let's say that you made that conversion over, a few years at maybe $50,000 a pop. All right. And so now when you start taking out, each $50,000 chunk has a new 5-year window before you can take it out. So in my example a little bit ago, I mentioned you were going to be $25,000 per year. Well, by the time you start taking out that last conversion of $25,000, you would have met the 5-year window on that first conversion. And so it's still the conversion amounts, you're still good. You still have to get through all $300,000 before you start hitting any of the growth. And so a lot of people have been afraid of taking money out of their Roths if they have just converted because they're afraid that they won't hit that 5-year rule. And that 5-year rule is only on the earnings, not on any of the actual contributions or any of the actual conversions. And so you'd be pretty hard pressed, depending on the amount that you're converting and the amount that you would actually need to take out of your Roth IRA, to ever be a quote victim of that 5-year rule. So if that wasn't confusing enough, I guess get a hold of me. Maybe I can clear it up for you. Clear as mud, whatever. Anyway, that's how it is. And I've got a couple of sources, articles that might help with this as well that I used as sources for this. But just understand those three. Let's go back to that. Those 3 rules, or the order, the pecking order that Roth IRA contributions or Roth IRA funds come out of your Roth IRA accounts. They first come out in contributions, then conversions, and then third and finally, growth. And it's only the growth funds that you have to worry about still paying tax on if you haven't met that 5-year rule. So based on my example, you can see how in most cases, you probably don't have to worry about the 5-year rule of dipping into any of the earnings because you've got so much in contributions and conversions. And, you've got a lot of funds that you have to go through first before you even touch any of the earnings. So that's it. I just wanted to bring that up. This is a pretty short episode, but I've had that happen. I've had that question happen, I want to say like 3 or 4 times just in the last 2 weeks. And so if I get a question once, okay, I can kind of maybe just push it off. Twice, maybe a coincidence, but 3 to 4 times in a short amount of time, we probably need to do a podcast on it. So that way that it can kind of clear the air, because even some of these articles are written very confusing, right? And you don't really understand them. But just understand those 3 things, and that'll help a heck of a lot with understanding what type of funds you're pulling out of your Roth IRAs and whether or not you will actually be taxed on it. So the majority of the time, I would say the majority of the time, you don't have to worry about because of the example that I gave, right? So if you have any questions about Roth conversions, whether or not they make sense for you, whether or not you actually will end up saving tax money by converting over to a Roth, or am I too old to convert to a Roth? Is it actually going to be beneficial for me? Get a hold of us. We do this all the time. It's part of part of our process, is we can help figure out whether or not a Roth IRA contribution or conversion may make sense for you. So our link to our calendar is going to be in the show notes here somewhere, or if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description. So go ahead and click on that and we can help answer that question for you. So that's it, guys. Like I said, pretty short and sweet today, but hopefully that clears up that 5-year rule regarding Roth IRAs. Take care, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week.